everyone, I'm Anshika Sharma, the co-founder and co-president of Paragon. Today, I'm excited to take you beyond Paragon with our new podcast series, Soch and Strategy. Our guest for the day is Mr. Damanjeet Singh, a principal business consultant at Infosys Consulting. With 20 years of experience, he's ready to make this session an enriching one. So, let's dive right in.
Hello guys, thank you so much for everyone who's tuned in today. My name is Aryan Sethi. I'm the marketing head for Paragon, and joined by me is Mr. Damanjeet Singh. He's the principal business consultant at Infosys. Thank you so much for being a part of this.
Thank you so much, Aryan, for having me for today's interaction. Always lovely to talk to you.
Very kind, man. Thank you for having us in your house. That's very sweet of you.
Let's go with the flow. Let's see what you have in store for me.
Alright, let's start. So, sir, we're going to start with some surface level questions,
Okay.
and then we're going to dive deeper into consultancy and how did you find your way, etc. So, I think childhood is obviously a big part of everyone's life. So, how were you as a kid? I'd like to ask you a couple of questions.
Okay.
Firstly, where did you grow up? And how were you as a kid? Were you a very outdoor kid or notorious or nerdy?
Okay.
And secondly, I feel every child has a very vivid memory of their childhood they can write a film about. So, what would that be for you?
Okay. So, very multiple layered questions. Let me start off with your very first one, where you asked me that I think it starts off with childhood, right? As
Right.
to what sort of a kid I was. Every kid likes to be called notorious, but frankly, I was never a notorious kid. I was always a very studious kid. But I did have my, periods where I was, naughty in class and I have been pulled up by teachers. So I've lived through that phase. Where have I lived? Well, my father being in the Air Force, we got posted all across India. So I've measured the length and breadth of the country. I've got exposure of most of the cultures in India, and I think that is what helped me made a very well-rounded personality as I grew up. So that is what I would say. I have multiple memories of childhood, multiple vivid memories of childhood. Uh, the one that is most stark and which never leaves my side is around mid 80s when the concept of melas was very common in India, and I got lost in the mela.
Okay.
And it is a time where there are no cell phones, there are no GPS trackers,
Right.
there are no tiles to tag any kid, and I got lost. And there was this one girl who caught hold of my hand, took me to an ice cream stall, made me stay there, waited till my parents came, and had it not been for her, I wouldn't be talking to you today. So that's how I was lost and found. It was scary then, but it's funny now.
So, Mr. Singh, can we go a little deeper? Growing up in an army background, did that teach you a lot of resilience, adaptation? How does that come in handy now in the present day?
That's a very good question. I think all the grit and determination that comes from childhood can come from multiple backgrounds. But if you come from a defense background, like my father was in the Air Force and multi-generational defense forces we have, I think that sets you up for success in a way that you do not get bogged down or pushed or cowed down in life very easily. So if you do face challenges and difficulties, I think it is normally you've seen such things happen at home, these challenging situations coming in a defense background, so you don't get cowed down very easily in life. So that really, really helps. So that's what's been helping me till now.
That's amazing. All right. A few years after school, starting college, one thing I've observed is children who really peaked in high school, they don't have such a great time at college. There are obviously different cases, and vice versa. Students who are really shy and not so outgoing in school, they usually tend to have a great time in college. So, where did you go for college and how was your experience?
That's a very sharp observation, and that's quite true to a large extent. I have faced this firsthand myself. I was not very outdoorsy or very extrovertish, when I was in school. But having said that, as I moved into college, I had to step out of my comfort zone. So I moved from a home environment where I had to shift lock, stock, barrel with my luggage to Pune. And my father, being a typical Air Force pilot, said, "Pack your bags.
Right.
You're on your own. I'm not going to leave you like you're some small kid. Here's your train ticket. Manage your own self." And I had to kind of, it was like finding my way through the jungle, going to a new city, settling down, finding a place to live, finding new flatmates and all that. So all that was very tricky and tough at that point in time. But I think that is how you break out of your comfort zone. Coming back to your question, I was not very extrovert. I became extrovert over a period of time. So kids normally that you see are in their shell in the beginning might explode out of their shell, and it requires some bit of a push sometimes to make that happen. Now it happens naturally or it happens through a push your parents. It's your own luck. Sometimes people don't want it to happen and they keep staying in a cocoon of a life that they're leading. That's how it is then.
Amazing. So very unapologetically, I stalked your LinkedIn and your socials. And early on in your career, I think you were deeply involved in marketing, brand building, all of those things. So how did consultancy drive in? Like, did it come to the table, or did you work on it or something?
Good one. I was wondering why my LinkedIn search is going up so much. I didn't know you were the one responsible for stalking. So now I know it's a fraud build-up that happened. I was feeling happy about it. Consultancy was never supposed to happen to me directly. It happened indirectly. I worked mostly in product in various roles in telecom throughout my life. But having worked 20 years in the product management field, I felt the time has come wherein I leverage the strengths, whatever I've learned over the period of time of 20 years managing a product, be it customer lifecycle management, be it your value management, be it product management. How do you bring these things together at one piece at one point in time? How do you build a structure in a way that you can leverage as a professional? To me, I thought that the best way possible would be to get into consulting.
Right.
But the core domain would remain telecom. Keeping the core domain the same, how do I kind of put forth all my experience and give it back to the industry? I think consulting is one of the best things that can make that happen for you. Hence, I took that step into consulting and I moved into full-time consulting. And I joined Infosys as a principal consultant.
Amazing. So, from a student who is a member at a consultancy club, what are some desirable characteristics people in interviews look for, or you look for in your subordinates that makes a complete professional?
Okay, so now you're moving deeper into the consultancy domain, and I think these are the right questions you're asking. If you are in the consultancy, let's say club, or part of a group that is deep into consultancy, I think it's more about, I go by a saying which says, closed mouths don't get fed, right?
Right.
You always need to ask the right questions, and the quality of your life, I firmly believe, depends on the quality of the questions you ask yourself. So I think it is more about diving deep into your own personality, understanding what personality type you are. Everybody is not made out to be a consultant. You turn out to be a consultant over a period of time, or you could be consultant from day one. Depends on your personality type. But you need to be at least a subject matter expert, an SME in something to be called a consultant. Otherwise, you are not standing in your own truth.
Right.
So, having said that, I think it is about understanding what sort of trait and personality you possess.
Right.
What is it that you want to do in the mid-term to a long term? Never think short term. Always think decades. Never think in years. At least think in decades. And that's how you build up yourself from college. Consultants are not born overnight.
Mm-hmm.
They are made over a period of time. I was not born overnight a consultant. I thought about being a consultant because I became extrovertish over a period of time. One thing is for sure, you cannot be an introvert and be a consultant at the same time. It doesn't go hand in hand together. It's like saying I want to be MC of an evening, but I'm a little shy with the mic. It won't. That's the career not for you.
Right.
So if you want to be a consultant, make sure you have got a T-shaped personality. That you're wide in a lot of topics, but you're deep in one. That's called a T-shaped personality. So I would really, really harp upon the point. Get into one domain, get your expertise in that domain, be known as a subject matter in that domain, and then you become a consultant in that domain. I think that works very fine. But there will be some hiccups along the way, but that's okay, that's how life is. But try to push yourself in that direction, things work out on their own.
Alright, so my key uptakes would be being very social, being an extrovert, and thinking long term, majorly.
Yeah, but I'll also be a subject matter expert in one domain. That's that's the core of it. You can't be jack of all trades and master of none and say I want to be a consultant. It might not work for you. It'll be very tricky.
You speak a lot about personalities and character. So I think you spent a long time overseas at work. So was majority of that time alone or with friends and family? How did that work out?
So my stints outside of India were the most interesting ones. I think they are the ones that have helped me shape my personality. They've helped me shape my career. Most of my stints were individual stints where I spent time as an IC, an individual contributor in most of the roles that I did. During those roles, I think it was more about understanding the culture. It is all about cultural transformation that happens in one's life as you do these roles outside of India.
Right.
So once I moved out of the Indian culture context to another continent's context, I had to reinvent myself in terms of the way of interacting with people. What are the do's and don'ts of being in another country? If you do not go by these sort of rules, you can end up on the wrong side of the law and also on the wrong side of your own career. So these didn't seem important to me initially. As I moved up the ladder, so I had a chance to work in Middle East, I had a chance to work in Southeast Asia. Right now I'm working on a project where I have to go to Japan. I'll be spending most of my time in Tokyo. I need to quickly transform myself from how I was in Middle East to how I will be in Japan. It's totally different. It's a transformation. So the way you conduct meetings, the way you speak to people, the way you conduct yourself outside, what do you say, when do you say, it's very, very different across cultures. So it's more of a learning curve as a consultant.
Alright. So for the next few minutes, we'll be talking more about your methodology and approach towards consultancy. Starting fresh at a project, what are your initial steps that you take to diagnose a certain client or a team or an organization? How do you diagnose the issues and the strengths of an organization?
That's a great question. It's a very deep question. Whenever I get into any project, I think the first thing I do are three things. First is listen, second is listen, and third is listen. So you know what I'm trying to get at, right?
Yeah.
Listening is key, not only across consulting, but across any aspect of your life. If you want to learn, the first thing is to listen, not to speak. Like they say, keep your mouth shut and your ears open.
Right.
So similarly, going into a project, it's all about listening, because listening helps you understand. Understanding helps you gain perspective. Gaining perspective helps you to leverage the situation in which you are, and then you open your mouth, and and this is where your subject matter expertise comes in, where you lay the table for everybody saying, these are the ground rules, this is what I observed in the organization, and I think this is what we should be doing. So first is that. Second most important is hitting the top, the CXOs, getting to know the CXOs really well, understanding what the problem statements of the CXOs are. How long have these problems been there in the organization? How deep are these problems? And can you actually see out problems saying, this is not important, these are the important ones? Can you do a Pareto of 80-20 saying, these 80% problems does not matter even if you do not solve them, but if you solve for these 20%, you solve for majority of the issues of the organization. I think that is one more important aspect. Third is teams.
Right.
Get to know people, speak to people at the grassroots level, understand what challenges they are facing. I think this has to start from college itself, I would say. At college level, even if you're in committees and you try to interact with college students, try to understand challenges at college level, at grassroots level, be it sports, be it academics, be it any committees that you're part of, be it anything where you gather issues, and then you emerge as a leader saying, I think we should approach the college, let's say the principal or the vice principal or the chairman, saying, these are a set of challenges, but the true learning is where you say, I think this is a possible solution for these problems. Never only go ahead with a set of problems and say these are problems. You're seen as a problem creator and not as a solver. As a solver, you say, I also suggest these are solutions. and that's how you build up from college days as a professional. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's at least how I have learned.
Like you said, I'm just realizing why God gave me 2 years and 1 mouth. I'm with all ears. This is great. Yeah,
True.
I get what you're saying. Staying and connecting to everyone is very important. So being in business, it's a lot about ups and downs, and consultants are more or less very used to seeing businesses not going the way they should be and trying to fix it. So I've got a couple of questions that resonate with how do you deal with such problems. My first question would be, how do you deal with, like you said, CXOs? Companies who have built themselves over decades, they might be super resistant towards some changes that might associate with their values, marketing, could be anything. So how do you convince someone at the top to change something that's causing losses to their business?
What I understand from what you're asking me is that at the top level, there could be people who are fixated to certain ideas
Right.
of their organization, saying this is how things work in an organization, without realizing that it might not be the truth, it might not be helping the organization in the longer run.
Right.
See, these are very tricky situations, and why I say that is because as you keep on growing in life, egos keep becoming larger and larger. And when egos become larger, it is more about managing egos rather than managing the problem itself. You know?
Right.
So if you're able to manage the ego first, you can manage the problem also. The problem becomes secondary. In most of the organizations, the CXOs wield a lot of power. They wield a lot of authority, and they think we know the business best. Nobody knows it better than us. In such situations, it's always better to spend maximum time with these people and try to understand where they are coming from, where are their personal challenges in an organizational setup. Can you solve for their personal problems in the business context and in the business environment? But at the same time, at the back of your mind, you must understand what is the larger picture you're trying to solve for. If you go ahead solving only individual problems, you're going to get stuck. You're going to be like a square peg in a round hole.
Right.
You're not going to get around anywhere.
Right.
So I think it is more about being patient, being calm, not trying to solve for everything in life. It works even in college, by the way. Never try to solve for anything in life. It's a build-up. Even in organizations, don't try to solve for everything at the same time. Nobody is a super god or a superhuman.
Right.
Solve for the basics. See if it works for the larger majority of people. It doesn't work for the larger problem of the organization. And if it works for it, it works for the CXO as well. Everybody goes home happy.
Understood. So being a part of so many projects, from your success, of course, there must be times where things don't go your way. So some projects might not end up where you thought they would. So how do you deal with the failures and how do you treat them?
So most of people would not want to be associated with failures in life and in projects. But I think if you are not ready to accept failure, you're not ready for success as well. In terms of managing projects and failures, I think if you do get hit by a failure in a project, the best thing to do is to kind of take 2 steps backwards, think what went bad, and try to associate yourself with the group that is solving for the problem along with you. Sometimes in life, or most of the time in projects, you can tend to miss out the bigger picture. And if you tend to miss out the bigger picture, there's no shame or harm in owning up, saying, I did not see the bigger picture. Let me see if I can work in a group and see from their perspective. So I call this moving from a point of view to a viewing point. A viewing point is always a higher, more expansive part of a viewing point, where you can see the problems in a better perspective. But if you think things from a point of view, it's a very narrow, limited, your own perception. So associate yourself with groups that are working on similar problems and see how they are viewing problems. Suddenly your failure becomes a learning, and from that learning comes success. But it's always it's a step process. You can never short circuit it. Never try to short circuit your failures into success overnight. Try to learn from other people, other groups, and then move forward together and see if you can replicate that in other projects as well.
Amazing. That's a really good insight. So for the next phase of the podcast, we'll be moving into professional and private relationships of your life and how do you shape them up. Talking professional first, what are the key steps by the book and personally you take to form a really good client relationship?
Client relationships, I think, form the core of consultancy. Consulting business is not about giving solutions to your client. Consulting is more about understanding your client first and then going to what their problems are. If you're not able to understand the nature of your client, I think you're setting yourself up for disaster. So I think it starts off with understanding the client's needs itself first before going and jumping onto the problem. So for any project, I think my first bit is always about interacting with the client on a very casual basis, like how me and you are talking right now.
Right.
I would probably set up casual conversations with clients and set it over a period of few weeks before I actually start the project. Once the client gets comfort with you, then the client starts to put the confidence in you, saying, "Oh, do you know we also have these problems in organization." Somebody will not tell you, but there's some politics that is happening. The real problem is not the problem, but there's some politics which is happening, or which is a side one, but it is hampering our business. Once you get the confidence of the client in you, that is the time you strike deeper inside and try to get to the crux of the problem. I normally try to get to know the client better, try to interact, get the comfort of the client, get the confidence of the client, and then move on to the business problem. The business problem always comes later. It's much easier to solve for once you have the confidence of the client with you. So I think that's the golden rule I normally follow in most of these assignments that I have.
So, talking more about trends and personal choices, if you were to start up a business regarding consultancy today, how would you split your tech and talent? With AI coming into the picture, it's a norm to talk about this every day now. So, how would you rationalize these aspects of business?
That's a very good question. I think if I were to start off something from scratch, I would start something really small because personally I like to build up things over a period of time and not overnight. It's like Lego. If you try to build up a Lego piece all together at one go, it can come crashing down. But if you go slowly and steadily and you build the right building blocks, the foundation is correct, it builds up a beautiful Lego. Your personal business is something similar. Start slow, but be sure. Start small. Tech talent. I think they go hand in hand, but leverage tech for sure. AI has come in a way where you do not need to spend much out of your own pocket to deliver value for you.
Yeah.
So you must know the right tools in place in terms of what you want to use for delivering for you in terms of content, in terms of probably projects, in terms of knowing what are the right projects to get into. There are multiple tools that help you build up your consultancy depending on what part of consultancy you want to build up, as a professional. So use the right tools which are there in place. There are multiple sources to get that.
Right.
As far as talent goes, you can never replace talent 100% by tech. That is for sure. If that were to be done, I would not be speaking to you. I would not be consultant anymore. You can as well as speak to a robot, and the robot can do the job done. Emotion plays a big part in consultancy. You need to be invested in the other party emotionally, and vice versa. The client needs to be invested in you. I don't think that can happen purely with AI, but yes, you must leverage AI in your consultancy. So you were also asking me about, I think, tools in AI. The basic tools, I think, remain the same. The basic infrastructure for anybody starting up their own business or consultancy remains the same. But I think there are a lot of tools, for example, text to speech is one thing that can really hit the ball out of the park, is what I feel. I use that quite often. I think that there are tools out for data visualization and storytelling. That's a major part about that forms a major component of the toolkit that you can use where you leverage AI. So Tally is one of those tools where you can use for making graphics and visualization. So there are multiple tools if you go and search on it as to what can you use once you set up your own consultancy, or even if you do not, even if you're doing a day job. I think it depends on how you position yourself in life. And positioning yourself in life can only happen if you have the right tool set with you.
Right.
Without the proper tool set, it is going to be a mediocre life. So, and for that, you need to be on top of tech. So, spend at least, my advice to the younger generation would be spend at least, 1 hour every day at the end of the day to understanding of not 1 hour, half an hour, what's happening in the tech world. What are the latest trends? What is the latest technology? What is it that is hitting the ball out of the park in terms of skill sets? What are the skill sets that are getting outdated? What are the skill sets that are most required right now?
Right.
If you're on top of the game, then you stay in A shape in terms of what skill sets the market wants. And that's it's very, very crucial, especially for the younger generation coming into the corporate world.
Every industry has their own biases and norms. So, what were some pleasant surprises or some misconceptions that you had of the consultancy world that you don't possess anymore?
There are a lot of misconceptions that are there for the corporate world and the consultancy world, but I think the more time you spend in corporate world, the easier it becomes for you to understand that these misconceptions are very, very broad and generalized in nature. और ऐसा होता नहीं है जैसा लगता है कि so there are hardworking and late nighters you have to put in, sometimes you have to pull 2 all nighters to get work done. But you will not have things like the toxic culture that I was talked about is very less because there's very less time to get into politics and get into the toxicity of the culture. And even if it exists, I think the best way is what one of my ex-bosses told me was just keep you, and this is on an international assignment. When I went to Indonesia, he said, I want you to do one thing. I just want you to keep your head down and work. Forget about the politics around you. You have a lot of politics around you. So I think that's something that's commonplace. That is something you should recognize. But that is something you should not get into. And it starts off from college, I say again. You will be committees, there will be a lot of things, there will be a lot of politics. Just get your head down, get the work done, and get out of there. Same works in the corporate world, nothing much changes. Corporate, I think professionals are nothing but grown up children. But in a place where they're doing a little bit of grown up work, the nature of everything remains the same. So, misconceptions, I didn't have many when I came to the corporate world. I knew most of how the corporate world works, but corporate politics can sometimes get to you. So I would say just kind of stay away from it. Set hard boundaries, very important. If you're not able to set hard boundaries, then you're not able to prioritize your time, then somebody else will prioritize it for you. That is the saying I go with. So please prioritize your own time to prevent anybody from prioritizing it for you.
So, understanding a little more about your personal life and how you work things out, how do you handle feelings like pressure, getting overworked, all of those things? So, how do you address them and how do you even spend time addressing them? Because that's a big part of corporate life and whatever, ignoring such emotions often.
Okay, let me surprise you a little bit. It has never been smooth sailing for me, and nor is it for anybody else. If somebody is telling you that, I am able to manage pressure very well and all that, I think there's a little bit of truth, more of hidden lies that are there. In the initial part of my career journey, there were times that I would mostly, this is when I was managing product at Airtel, I would mostly come back at around 4 o'clock in the morning, and this happened for a long number of times. When I was coming back after 2, 3 o'clock in the morning from work, not from a party, from actual work, sleeping, getting up, getting ready again, 8 o'clock going to office, and the entire cycle would repeat. The cycle was so bad that I had forgotten when there's a Saturday, when there's a Sunday, when there's a Monday, the weekends wouldn't matter to me. I had forgotten what a Saturday would look like. I would forget what a social evening would look like. It was just eat, sleep, repeat, like the Tom Cruise movie. It is later on that I realized that this is not positive pressure, this is something called negative pressure. It started to affect my physical well-being, it started to affect my mental well-being. It started to make me getting agitated, it started to affect my sleep cycles, it started to affect my biochemistry to such a level that it really shakes you up. And that was the time I decided that one must set hard boundaries in life. Be it in college, be it as a professional, be it in your interaction with people outside. Please set hard boundaries in life. And when I mean by hard boundaries is, if you cut off your day at let's say 7:30 p.m., it's a hard cut. You please unplug yourself like a robot is unplugged off. Unplug your laptop, unplug your phone. Do a digital detox at least once a week, wherein you switch off your phone for the entire day and do nothing but physical and social interaction with your family, with your kids, with your friends, with your phone totally off. The trick to do that is that you switch on. If you don't switch off your phone, you can just turn on the aircraft mode on, so that your phone remains a camera and you can still have fun on the weekend clicking photographs, but you do not get distracted by any notifications. It's called mixing the notifications. You jump on social media, but you just focus on interactions, traveling, roaming around. It's essential. Why I'm saying this is essential, because once the Monday happens, then you have reset your mind, and you must reset and rejig your mind for the Monday, because the entire week is waiting for you. So I have been through this phase where I was under tremendous pressure physically, mentally, and I had lost my balance. And that's the time my family said, "You have lost your semblance of life. Please get back on track." So the way to do that is set hard boundaries for yourself and for other people. People should know that you will not pick up the phone after 7:30. If you pick up the phone after 7:30, you're setting yourself up for disaster. At the month of phone उठा ही लेकर 7:30 की बात कर लो, phones को काम की बात कर लो. Don't pick up. They know after 7:30, boss, this guy will not pick up the phone. Wait for the Monday.
I want your personal take on this. When it comes to the age group of 18 to 25, there are two schools of thought. One says that this is the prime of your life. You're never going to be as energetic as this, not have as much time as this ever again. And as you said, some people strongly believe you always have a work-life balance. So for this age group, what would your optimal advice be to either rush it out and do as much as you can before you don't have time for this, or you stick to what you're saying for the long term?
Oh, very tricky question. I'll tell you something which I firmly believe in. Never ever be a hustler in life. Never hustle.
Okay.
Hustle gets you nowhere. Hustle only gets you into a bustle. So at this age group, having said that, but this is the age group where you must experiment. You must try out different things, because you do not know what will suit you as a personality type, what is going to help you hit the ball out of the park. You never know. But I'm sure at this age you should know what your at least basic 2-3 strengths are. If you do not know, it makes all sense to understand what your strengths and good areas are, and only then you can start to build on those areas. 18 to 25 is a period where you must experiment, must not waste too much of time socializing and partying, but that's an important part. Do it, because you can't do that at 40. You can do that, but it's not the same thing. You build up your social connections at 18 to 25. Build the right social connections at 18 to 25. Surround yourself with more people who let you, who bring the best out in you, not the worst out in you. So all of these things go hand in hand. So between 18 and 25, I think push yourself to experiment maximum, see what works out for you. Journal, write down things on a daily basis before you sleep as to what worked out for you during the day, what did not work out. And after a month's time, you'll have massive amounts of literature about your own self that you didn't know. You will always have time beyond 25 to still rethink as to what you can do with your life. It is not that कि 18 से 25 में मुझे लगा कि मैं तो cricketer ही बन सकता हूँ because मेरा right hand बड़ा अच्छा है and I can hit the ball out of the park. I can play. Maybe you're made for something else. You can, and that happens after 25. So do not stick with one thing that works for you very well in 18 to 25. Be open to experiment and keep waiting for the right opportunity to come. But the opportunity screening is everybody. It depends if you open the door and listen to the opportunity. That's all.
Talking a little more about the youth, I'm sure you handle teams and subordinates and people in your organization. What do you think is the biggest challenge that you face with the Gen Z today?
The Gen Z question. I was waiting when you would ask me the Gen Z question. So see, this is my personal take on this. Every generation thinks they're smarter than the previous generation. It is a fact, but with a pinch of salt. So the previous generation has also been through the same ocean as you are going through.
Correct.
So the Gen X will think they're better than the Gen Y will think they're better than the Gen X. And the Gen X will think they're better than the baby boomers, so on and so forth. And this has been continuing for ages, right?
Right.
I'm sure you think you're pretty smart, which you are, right? But you'll also have a generation which is next to you who will be smarter than you. So how do you manage such a situation? I think the best way is to take all the youth in your team, try to understand what their expectations are, try not to impose your expectations on them, but at the same time make sure they know what is their deliverable, what is the output expected, what are the minimum number of working hours that are expected. You don't have to have a very vacuum watertight saying, इतने घंटे काम करना नहीं तो तनख्वाह नहीं मिलेगी. So that doesn't work these days. It worked probably 10, 15, 20 years back. These things have changed, things have progressed, things have modified. Take people with you, understand how the new generation works, and leverage them. The idea is always to leverage people. Understand what motivates them. What motivates me will not motivate you as a generation. I need to understand your motivation.
Right.
So if I ask you, what is your motivation to work? What is your motivation? Hit me with two things.
Better positions, a sense of respect and admiration in the office, able the liberty to spend my time and finance the way I want it.
So that's a very, very independent thought. So if you were in my team and you told me these are my expectations, I will make sure that I'm addressing these expectations one by one, slowly and steadily saying, okay, if you put in some hard work, maybe from executive you can get promoted to senior executive, which will help you make more money, which will make you financially independent. So why don't you plan your next 2-3 years like this? And you can always come back to me as a mentor. You can always come back to me where you think you're slipping, and I can help you, modify your way. But make sure you have fun. Make sure you do your parties. Make sure along with work you also have fun along the way. I need to make sure that I make you mentally comfortable along with the tasking that I give you. And this will change from generation to generation. You will face this challenge once you manage a team and once you are called Gen Z or whatever, Gen Z uncle. You can call a Gen Z uncle one day. But then you have to manage the next team, which is Gen Alpha.
My personal opinion on this is Gen Z are probably one of the best people to work with if you can get into their minds the right way. If they look at you as someone they want to meet and work with, I think they'll work exceptionally hard and over the hours. They don't care about sleepless nights anymore. That's not an issue anymore. So they'll put in more work actually if you fit the right spot in their life.
Okay, that's a good perspective. So one size doesn't fit all. So you have to see within Gen Z also which is the right team person for your team. So like in your college committee, you have some people who are fit for finance, some people in the committee who fit for marketing, some people who are fit for events. You will not have a finance guy saying to marketing mein aaja, he'll be a misfit there. He can be Gen Z. All of you are Gen Zs. But you can still be a misfit within your same age groups. So you need to find the right niche for every person within your team.
Okay, so let's break the walls a little. In this podcast, my goal is not only talk about work, jobs, businesses, but a little personal takes as well. As you said, that working very hard spoiled some of your personal relationships and it got in your head. So what is your take on that? I've heard very successful people say that great relationships help them grow more, while some say that it actually distracts them and they choose to stay away from these type of relationships. So what's your take on that? How does it work out for you?
I've read this somewhere, which I firmly believe in. Magic always happens on the sides and never in the middle.
Right.
So when I say that, let me try to explain that. If you want to do something really great in life, you need to find extremities. You will have to burn the midnight oil. You'll have to put in the hard work. You'll have to spend time away from family. You'll have to spend time away from friends. You'll have to spend time away from parties. That is when the magic will happen on a professional. But it's called a zigzag pattern. How do you navigate the zigzag pattern is you do these things, but you suddenly come back to the center where you spend neutral time with family, with friends, with relatives, with roaming around, and you do that neutral time frame. But as soon as you want magic to happen, you have to again break the score and again go to the sides. So it's like a zigzag pattern. Imagine there are two parallel lines, and this line that is zigzagging, and suddenly comes to center again normal, and again zigzags. That's how you're supposed to navigate your career. You are supposed to put in the hard work. You are supposed to get stuff done, but you're also supposed to come back to the center and live a life that you've always wanted to live. But if you want magic to happen, it will always happen at the extremes. Do not expect magic to happen in career, in any frame of life, by doing something which is mundane or which is routine on a daily basis and expect, ये तो जादू होने वाला है, इसमें कुछ ऐसा. It doesn't happen that way. So I've lived through that, and I always say that if you want that magic to happen, be ready for extremities.
So I'd like to end this podcast by asking you a question. If you had to overdo the past decades, would you do something differently or do you accept it completely?
That's a very tricky one. You kept the trickiest question at the end, but let me see if I can do justice to it. Would I do something different than what I've been doing? The safest answer for this would be no. I would have not done anything differently. But I think the right answer for that would be if I rewind the years that I have lived, probably there are a lot of mistakes that I have done. And these things, by the way, only come over a period of time. You learn from your mistakes. Nobody can say that ये तो मैं गलती करता ही ना, ये गलती ना करता तो ये issue ना होता मेरे life में. But this you only come to know after you've done the mistake. So there is kind of no point of saying, okay, would you have done something differently? Yes, if I would have done something differently, probably would have been, I wouldn't have worked so hard that I worked initially and spoiled my health about it. I would have definitely not done that. I would say health is priority. Health is number one. Party hard at the same time, work hard at the same time. You can still live both lives. It's called the life of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. You can always do that.
Alright, so that would be my time with you. The fastest. How long have we been recording for? A couple of hours? The fastest couple of hours we've gone. Thank you so much, Mr. Singh.
Perfect. It was lovely interacting with you. I hope I was able to give you some tidbits.
Absolutely.
And some unnecessary gyan along with some pearls of wisdom. But I think it's essential to give off if somebody wants to understand how they want to kind of leverage and live the life. You can always pick up some things, not everything, whatever works for you. Then find your own way.
Alright.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.